You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast presented by Arizona Lottery. Don't forget to get out and buy your holiday scratchers. Now, if anybody in the media could get the Arizona Lottery and we would wish it upon them, it would be Aaron Torres, the only honest person left in the media. Hello, the great Aaron Torres, coming to us from looks like Paris, France, Charles de Gaulle's side room. Where are you at, Aaron Torres?
This is my AZ Wildcats bunker, PHNX bunker. You know, you guys, listen, you guys go above and beyond every single time I come on this show. You know, I'm not the type of guy to ask for a car at room temperature or a bottle of water at a certain temperature, but you just give me the PHNX bunker. I love it. I appreciate you guys going to bat for me and helping me out.
And that's the least we can do for the great Aaron Torres from Fox Sports' own Aaron Torres. Before we get started, Aaron, what do you got going on? I know you got a lot of stuff going on right now. What is going on in Aaron Torresville?
Nothing much. You know, listen, you know, I will say this is actually the finals week across college sports, has been a nice reprieve. I do have a full-time producer that helps me with my podcast. He's on vacation with his family. And so this week has been kind of a little bit of a decompression week. I mean, you know, I think next week will probably be a little bit slow, but then we'll get a bunch of bowl games. As of right now, I'm planning on being at the Rose Bowl. Now, obviously, you know, Fox Sports Radio might need me in studio that day, so we'll see. Still pumping out the podcast. As one of your commenters said, you know, I got a lot of people in West Lafayette mad at me right now. I don't really care because I believe what I said, and I believe, you know, as the title says, I'm the only honest person left in the media. I'm willing to say things that people aren't happy with, but other than that, it's great. It's a great time of year. Elf's on TV every night. And I'm just having the time of my life. I really am. And, you know, by the way, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I was in Lawrence a few weeks ago. I picked up this little tea. I told you, and I'll tell all the AZ fans listening, is first time the Wildcats go to Fog Allen. If you can fiscally afford it, just do it. It was an unbelievable experience. So, point being, I've been traveling a lot, and then the holidays, it's been a nice little kind of quiet week for Torres. You know, minus, you know, all of West Lafayette, Indiana, just coming from my head. So
now we're going to talk about these people, but first, can we bank on you coming to Arizona? When Arizona is in fog, will the great Aaron Torres be there? Can we get a commitment on air right now, Aaron Torres?
When they're in the fog?
Yes. Could be next year.
I mean, I hope it's next year. We got to call it Brett Yormark if it isn't next year.
Yes. We get a commitment right now from Aaron Torres.
I can't make that commitment. No, because I mean, I don't know. Is it a Monday? Is it a Saturday? I host radio every Saturday. I mean, I can't just be gallivanting all over the country. Just so happened that UConn was a Friday night. I flew back on Saturday, was able to get back and do my radio show. I will make this commitment to you, though. I think they announced the Gavitt Games is going on. That's the Big East, Big Ten. But now that you guys are a charter member of the Big 12, there is this Big 12 Big East challenge that I don't think anyone really understands because it's on multiple networks, multiple nights. It spans like 11 days, more confusing than the NBA in-season tournament. But I bring it all up to just say that if Arizona plays UConn in this event or any event of the nature, I will certainly come out to McHale if it's there. And assuming that you're going to Stores, I will, of course, come to Stores and host you there as well.
We have a commitment. We have a gentleman's agreement here that is actually being broadcasted. Okay, let's talk Arizona Purdue because you're right. Listen, you always hear the argument, and to me, it's a little bit of the argument of the Shaquille O'Neal argument back in the day, where people say, well, Zach Edey gets fouled every single time. No, Zach Edey fouls people every single time. And Aaron, you've brought this to light. Talk about what you've been going through this last week, and then we will agree with you.
Okay. You don't have to agree if you think I'm wrong.
Oh, I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
No, so it really started. So this is honestly how it started. I'm going to do one of those Torres long-winded. I'll be quick, and I won't end up being quick. No, so I'm watching Bama Purdue on Saturday. It was an awesome first half, back and forth. And I tweeted, and I'm one of these people. I just kind of tweet my thoughts in real time, right? So I tweeted, amazing first half, best half of basketball we've seen all year. And I said, I hope something to the effect of, I hope the referees put away the whistles because it's been kind of crazy, the calls that Purdue is getting. And so Alabama fans clearly loved that. They jumped in and they were commenting. Then what surprised me, Tennessee, which played Purdue earlier in the year in the Maui Invitational, Purdue shot 48 foul shots against Tennessee in that game. Tennessee fans jumped in and said, we agree with you on this, Torres. And so, first of all, as an Arizona fan, if you learn nothing, learn this. I don't think there are two fan bases in America that hate each other more than Tennessee and Alabama. And I'm being serious when I say that. People think Tennessee fans really hate Kentucky or Alabama fans really hate Auburn. I would put the hatred between those two fan bases as high as anybody. So to get them to agree on something was incredible. So I put that out. It got a lot of traction from Alabama fans. Alabama ended up losing. Purdue was a deserving winner. So the next morning, I'm kind of listening to one of these college basketball shows, and all they're raving about, oh, Zach Edey was again dominant, blah, 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 without even acknowledging that I think of Alabama's 4 big guys, 2 fouled out, 1 had 4 fouls for sure, and I think the other one had either 3 or 4 fouls. By the way, Zach Edey did not even pick up his first foul until about the 12-minute mark of the second half, okay?
Right.
So long story short, just for fun, because I see, the Zach Edey, and by the way, Zach Edey is a great player. I'll be quick because I want to get back to the main point of the story. The one thing that has sucked about this week is that it feels like all I'm doing is being critical of a 21-year-old kid who is a very good college basketball player. That's not what this is intended to be. But I went back and looked it up. In Purdue's 4 biggest games of the year, Purdue is plus 44 at the free throw line. Do some math. That's plus 11 per game over the 4 biggest games of their season.
Right.
Saying that foul shots should be 50-50 down the middle. That's not how basketball works. But it is a trend. I thought it was at least worth discussing. I discussed on my pod. Then I put out a clip of it on my social media, on my podcast page. That clip went bananas. And Mike, you know this, is that put out a clip. People think there's an unlimited number of characters on social media, not on Twitter, not,
right.
I don't pay the $11.99 or whatever to get those unlimited characters. So I just bring it up because I couldn't make the whole argument and credit Zach Edey for being awesome. I just said, here are the facts. Well, Purdue fans got a hold of it. They got mad. Then the loser media members that, there's a small clique of loser college basketball media members that all have the same opinion on every single topic. They have no audience. No one cares about their work. And then they wonder why. It's because you have the same opinion. So, and by the way, all I did was raise the question. All I did was raise the point. By the way, the following day, Nate Oates did a radio show where he essentially brought up the same thing. Nate Oates, you can like him. You cannot like him. By the way, this is the longest rant ever. So
keep going. We love it.
Listen, you could like Nate Oates. You cannot like Nate Oates. I think we all agree he is a great tactician, whether you agree or not with the way he handled Brandon Miller. He's a great tactician. And he basically said on his radio show, he said, if they're going to referee like that, no one has a chance to beat him. Right. So anyway, I guess it was Monday into Tuesday was just one loser media member with no audience after another, blue check mark. They want to look tough to everybody on social media. It's unbelievable. It makes me laugh. And whatever. And I think I'm right on this. By the way, I think there's nuance. There's nuance to this, right? I mean, 3-point, what percentage of your shots are in the 2-point paint, the paint touches versus non-paint touches, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the only point I'm trying to make, there is nuance. I thought it was at least worth asking the question, but like so often on social media, when you broach a topic that the consensus disagrees on, they try to quiet you. They try to silence you.
Right.
Torres will not be silenced. Only by my wife. When she tells me to shut up, I shut up. But other than that,
beacon of truth during an uncertain time.
That's what I mean.
Torres. Yes.
I will say this about our society, and I don't mean to be all societal and talk about, government conspiracy. The point is, we've gotten to a place where, unique thinking, critical thinking is frowned upon. And so that's never going to be me. I think that's why I've had a lot of success in my career. But anyway, that is the long version of what happened.
You know, the point that I think you really hit the nail on, too, is that Zach Edey, again, all right, let's just say that Zach Edey is drawing fouls. Sure, he's good, he's big, we all get that. But when you don't draw foul, when that dude, with the way he plays, doesn't draw fouls until the second half of a game, that to me is the biggest problem out of all of it. Because again, you watch Zach Edey, he's given as much as he's taken right there. You watch him against Arizona Purdue. He is very physical. Again, every bit his right, but there's no way that he's going the first 30 minutes of a game without committing a foul. It's impossible.
No, I agree. And that I think, and so again, to go back to the Nate Oates quotes, what I would say is that, sorry, I'm trying to tweet out because I want everybody to know that we're doing this and we're having some fun doing it. Nate Oates, I think, probably articulated better my argument than anything that I said, which is a shame because I did like a 15-minute rant on this on my podcast, whatever. But I think that is the crux of my argument. If you agree he gets fouled a lot, that's cool. I get it. No problem. That's fine. If you agree that, whatever. The point that I think Nate Oates made that I wish I had been smart enough to make in the initial rant is that there is no player in the history of basketball, Mike, Luke,
right,
that is good enough to draw 14 or 15 fouls on one end,
right,
and get called for 1 to 2 on the other end. That's not how basketball works. By the way, that's not how physics works. Like I wouldn't be a physician. Physicist? I guess I would be a physicist. I'm not a physicist. But the way that inertia works, I didn't know I'd be dropping in inertia 4 minutes into the show. But the way that inertia works, the way that bodies move, it is literally impossible. I mean, it's possible if the refereeing is one-sided, but if it's not one-sided, then whatever. So you get the point. But that to me is the crux of the argument, is that no player in the history of basketball has ever been good enough to draw 14, 15, 16, 18 fouls on one end and commit 1, 2, 3 on the other. It doesn't happen unless the refereeing is one-sided.
Now, let's talk a little bit about, by the way, that's a very good clip right there. I like that. 12:15. All right, let's talk a little.
Yeah, when I say inertia, that's when Jacob has to.
I was going to say, that's when the great Jacob Franklin comes out. We see Jacob behind the scenes right here. Look at Jacob Franklin. He's smirking. He doesn't know that I could bring him in. Hello, Jacob Franklin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mike?
Hey, Aaron.
Do you guys have a dump button for PHNX? Because I worry. We have a dump in the radio biz, Mike. You know the radio biz. There's something called the dump button in case somebody says inappropriate.
Yeah.
Depending on where this goes, you might need a dump button for Torres. So.
Yeah, I think you'll be fine.
No, you're very good. Trust me. But Jacob Franklin, how tall do you think Jacob Franklin is?
I think he's 6'8" because you told me that. I thought you said that you were 6'8", and I don't think I've ever met you in person. But
No,
I will.
He's not.
And I was
a few inches shorter.
And then like 2 days later, I remembered that, and I texted you. I was like, "Did I hear you say that you're 6'8" on your podcast, dude?" And you're like, "No, that's Jacob." So yes, you told me that. Did you play ball, Jacob?
No, I played some volleyball, but I was mostly music.
You're a regular Chase Budinger. Who could forget?
There we go.
He doesn't know that. All right, Jacob, you're dismissed. We'll bring you back in when you're needed. Thanks. Thanks, shoot, I just removed you and then you removed yourself. All right, here's where I think it's going to be fascinating. Arizona has a ton of big men that they can throw at Zach Edey.
Yes.
Again, Zach Edey's really good. Umar Ballo, leader of men, Umar Ballo, I'll say this. There are a few stronger players in the country. He's about 6'10", probably about 265, 270. I'm very curious to see how physical they allow him to be, because I imagine Arizona is going to try to keep Edey off the block as much as possible. Obviously, no duh. I'm curious to see how that works out first, because Umar Ballo, again, he's not Zach Edey, but he's a very strong person.
Well, and I think this is the interesting thing, is I actually think, first of all, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I think this has become a topic in college basketball circles this week. And I'm not saying that, listen, this is what it's going to sound like, but I swear I'm not doing it. I'm not saying that my commentary is going to impact the refereeing, but I'm not saying that either, because, dude, I have gotten so many texts from so many people in the college basketball space, not the loser media members that all think alike, but, as a guy that actually has sources, I've heard from a lot of people, and they fall in one of three buckets. One is Zach Edey is awesome. I don't agree with you on this.
Right.
That's a small percentage. A small percentage is also, I 100% agree with you. The refereeing is terrible.
Right.
The vast majority of people that I did hear from this week, though, were, he's a great player, but we appreciate you bringing this conversation to the light.
Right.
Not that he's not a 20-10 guy, but how, so I think,
he's not Superman though.
Yes.
Right.
He's not Wilt. By the way, that was my favorite. I had two favorite comebacks from Purdue fans this week. One was, well, I mean, you do understand that Purdue, the players are taught to defend without fouling. I'm like, that's literally every team in the history of basketball. Mike, you probably played at a lot of levels.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a coach say, listen, what I want you to do is focus on fouling every opportunity that you get from that doesn't exist. So that's one.
We need you to foul out as soon as possible so we can get you off the court. Maybe crappy players have been told that.
Yes. And by the way, that is another point about the Zach Edey stuff. And I don't mean to hijack it because I want to talk Arizona. But the at least when Shaq was getting mauled, it was a strategy. It was called hack-a-Shaq.
Right.
Zach Edey's like an 81, I don't know what the number is. I think it's an 80+% free throw shooter. So it doesn't benefit people to foul him. It actually is counterintuitive. So one, I'm curious how this game will be reffed because I do believe in college basketball circles, especially because there wasn't much else going on. It was at least a conversation. But then two, to your point, Arizona is maybe the only team in America that has the bodies to throw at Zach Edey over, between Krivas and Ballo. And listen, some of those other guys off the bench that you guys know more about than me, even if it's to go in and defend for 2, 3, 5 minutes to give Ballo a breather, whatever. So I'm curious because what I'll say is this. I don't see the scenario where when you're hosting your show on Monday, that if Purdue is plus 11, which is their average in free throws, that you can sit there and say that was a fairly evenly balanced referee game. I just don't think you can because all the excuses that Purdue fans have for all these other teams do not apply to Arizona, which is maybe the only school in America that has the size to throw at Edey.
All right, now we're going to talk about that, but let's say you might want to bet a little bit of money on this. The BetMGM Sportsbook app. Check it out. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX, Aaron Torres, not PHNA, PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app of at least $10. If your bet loses, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Again, all kinds of good stuff. Put down a deposit of at least $10 and place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if it loses. Now, let's hear Shane with the disclaimer.
Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right, now when Torres comes down to Arizona, which he keeps teasing us with.
Can you guys get a real schedule? I mean, this is why you're leaving the Pac-12.
Correct.
But I mean, a real post-January schedule. Like, I looked at the schedule.
It's terrible.
There's not a lot of, like, Torres is fired up to drive the 8 hours or whatever. Now, I'd probably fly, but, Southwest flies right into Tucson. But
we would give you, here's the deal, though. We would give you Arizona lottery tickets. Go out and buy your holiday scratchers today. Find a retailer like our friends at Circle K near your ArizonaLottery.com. Must be 21 years or up. Again, Aaron, you can put down $1 and get $500,000. That's how cool it is. All right, I am curious. We got the comments coming in hot and heavy. Marcelo Martinez, the great Marcelo Martinez. Great point. Two things here. I think if you're Arizona, you need to try to run. You need to try to run as much as possible to keep Edey going. And also, I would start out the game with Umar Ballo one-on-one. Now, again, if Zach Edey starts killing him, I get it. You start bringing over Keshad, your guy Keshad, which we're going to get to in a minute. But I'm curious about that. What do you think about those two takes?
I think Ballo is literally one of the few players that you can probably get away with single teaming him with. Right. No, I agree. And I think it changes. What's interesting is there really another guy that can actually like beat you And now Braden Smith is playing really well. He was the reason they won that Alabama game, by the way. And that was what got lost in the shuffle and this whole discourse that I've been involved in.
Right.
Braden Smith was awesome. 27 points, I think, in that Alabama game. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the question is there that consistent second guy? Because I think that takes them from good team that beats bad Big Ten teams during, December, January, February, which, that's one take that we are united as soldiers on. I mean, they need that second guy. And frankly, they in a perfect world, you have a third guy, right? I mean, how many guys for Arizona can beat you offensively while also playing really good defense? I mean, I think all 5 starters are averaging double figures. So I agree, because one, I'm not sold that any of the other 4 can beat you. Braden Smith maybe can if he's playing well. But if you can limit Zach, let me put it this way. If you can play basically one-on-one with Zach Edey for essentially the entire game without Ballo getting in foul trouble, and doing a reasonable job on him, I mean, I think Arizona wins and they win pretty comfortably.
We'll see. And that's still my question about, we keep hearing about, from, like you said, the rubber stamped media folks that just agree with each other. And they say, well, this is a drastically different Purdue team. And again,
is it
really, that's where we're going to get to. Again, Purdue is very good. That goes without saying. So miss me with all the comments about how, you said Purdue is not good. Never said that. But again, how many of these players would play at Arizona? I think there's 2.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, well, of course. That's why you're here.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be rude.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
They won the PK 85 last year and beat Gonzaga and Duke. It's not as though they weren't good in the out of conference last year too. By the way, the most amazing stat over the last, I think it's 3 seasons. I could be wrong. Certainly. So how about this? Since the start of last year, their only loss in non-league play was to Fairleigh Dickinson. So it's not as though they didn't start like this last year. Right. But I agree. And I think I'll say this, Mike, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess Purdue maybe has like a weirdly big fan base that I don't know of. I feel like Purdue is like the most protected program in any sport at any level that I've ever seen. Like, maybe not I've ever seen, but in the modern era now, it's when they're doing good. Oh, Matt Painter, nobody does more than less. Da, 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 da. And then when they choke in the tournament, it's crickets. Well, they shouldn't have even been a 1 seed to begin with. It's like, well, you can't give him credit for having a great regular season to get to a 1 seed, and then also don't criticize him when he underachieves when he gets there. And that's my whole thing. Like I heard this week about me is like, oh, Torres panders to certain fan bases. I don't pander to anybody. When freaking, when people say I pander to Alabama, I was more critical of Nate Oates, I would argue, than just about anybody in the college basketball media.
Right.
I was critical of Bama when Jermaine Burton shoved a Tennessee fan down at the stadium, and then he was playing the next week. So spare me with the pandering stuff. It's like, that's actually the pandering, when you throw flowers when things go well, and then you don't criticize when things go bad. And so to answer your question, I agree. Do I think they will end up as a 1 seed and lose to a 16 seed again? I don't. But do I think that they are a fundamentally different team that is fundamentally built to win in March in a way that they weren't a year ago? I don't. You know who I do think is that? Arizona.
Well, let's talk. But see, that's my other thing too. Before we get to Arizona, Lance Jones, Lawyer, all these dudes, they're solid. These are solid players again, but these are not guys that would be rotation players at Arizona. Again, Braden Smith would play at Arizona. I believe Zach Edey would play at Arizona. The other dudes, again, I'm not saying they're roster filler, but these are role players that I'm not scared of. And guess what? If Lance Jones beats Arizona because he goes for 38 points, then so be it. But they don't have dudes like KJ Lewis coming off the bench. They don't have people like Mount Crevis coming off the bench. Guys like that. To me, that's just a huge gap. And I think a big part of this media narrative is we have to push the Big Ten for whatever reason. We have to push the Big Ten nonstop. And Purdue is considered the class of the Big Ten. So we have to pretend that Purdue has absolutely no flaws.
Well, you know what is interesting about that? I was thinking about this, and I think it's very applicable to this weekend. The new media contracts,
right?
Purdue isn't going to be on ESPN.
Right.
And we have seen, and I can say this as a fan of a Big East school, listen, I don't think ESPN credits Villanova or UConn when they do well, but UConn was unbelievable. UConn was Arizona at this time last year.
Right.
And I don't feel like they got a fraction of the fanfare they would have if it was not Arizona, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky,
Kansas.
Whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But I do think, and it is a great question, is the discourse about the Big Ten going to be the same when they're not on ESPN's airwaves? And I'd add this. I ain't too when there's a game on ESPN and ESPN2 and Fox and FS1 and whatever.
Right.
Unless it's 1 versus 3.
Right.
I ain't pulling up Iowa versus Wisconsin on a Saturday when I got games on 7 different channels. And so I am curious if the discourse about the Big Ten changes a little bit as we get out of the ESPN era where ESPN is broadcasting their games. There'll still be games on Fox and whatever. But I do think it's an interesting conversation worth having.
All right, we got to talk about Arizona's athleticism. Actually, I think last year's Arizona team was kind of like a Big Ten team in that they overachieved. They were limited though. There weren't really any pros. I think there was a point made on there in the messages about or the remarks about that. But Aaron, the difference to me, and we'll work backwards, is Keyshawn Johnson, your guy who you messaged me immediately about, and Caleb Love. Arizona had absolutely nobody like either of those dudes last year.
Even Jaden Bradley as a 6th guy, as a 7, as KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley as the 7th and 8th guy on this team, if you include Krivas as number 6.
Exactly.
But go ahead. I'm cutting you off. I'm sorry.
By the way, Michael Candrea, do you know who his father is?
Michael Candrea. Oh, the baseball?
The greatest softball coach in history, I believe. Don't be modest. 8 national championships, I believe. Very, very good.
Isn't it great following all-time greats? You know,
Yeah,
I got to follow Gino. Jim Calhoun, who's going to be on my podcast next week, said Arizona's the best team that he's seen all year.
Oh, I like it. I like it. But Arizona just didn't have those type of dudes last year. You had Kirk Kriisa, you had Courtney Ramey, you had Seth Henderson. They all did some nice things. These dudes are difference makers, though. With Caleb Love, obviously, he's not going to shoot 49% from the field or whatever Jeff Goodman wants him to shoot. But guess what? He makes the big shots when it matters, and he wants the ball. Last year, Arizona, and again, I hate saying this, Arizona had some weenies. Tabellas, as good as he was, didn't want the ball down the stretch. Kirk Kriisa pretended that he wanted the ball down the stretch. Ramey wasn't really that dude. Arizona's got guys now highlighted by Caleb Love that wants the basketball down the stretch. And Keyshawn Johnson, the ultimate enforcer who showed himself in that Michigan State and Duke game. It's just a drastically different team.
Yeah, one of those comments I just saw, I want to react to it because I think it was really good. Arizona looking stronger and stronger. What was the one? Oh, the guy Jervis who said Tommy Lloyd does more with less. Look at last year. Why I want to respond to that, it's a great comment. But now what do you do when you have more?
Yep.
Because he did do more with less last year. I agree. Right. And I remember saying the first year, I said, look, I'm a Sean Miller guy. I love Coach Miller. I'm happy to see him at Xavier. But Tommy Lloyd got something out of that first team with Mathurin and Dale and Terry, et cetera, that Sean Miller wouldn't have been able to.
Correct.
So the reason I bring it up is Tommy Lloyd maybe does more with less, but now he's got more. And that's why Arizona is the number 1 team. That's why I've said since the day they played Duke, they are the best team in college basketball. Now, listen, they're going to hit their ebbs and flows like everyone else. Remember, UConn lost whatever it was. I think 4 of 6 or 5 of 7 or something in league play. Now,
that ain't happening, though, because UConn had to play good teams last year.
What I was going to say. Thankfully, there was, we don't play in a league with Washington State and Cal. Now, you won't either a year from now. But, So the point I'm trying to make is at some point they'll hit a skid. They'll hit a rough spot. But if you get a 2 seed with last year's team, you could get, let me ask you this. How crazy is Phoenix going to be if Arizona actually makes the Final Four?
Trust me, man. I've thought about that almost every single day of my existence. Sure. You will be at the Final Four. This is correct.
I will. Prices are, okay. Can I ask you a question on air that's probably more lean towards off air?
Yeah.
Where do I stay? Because the arena's 45 minutes from everywhere I want to be. No offense to the fine people of Glendale, Arizona, who are probably listening.
Yeah.
I stay in Scottsdale and rent a car, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
the
I
move.
would, dude, Aaron, I would definitely stay in Scottsdale again. But I got to be careful here, but I
I
would
know.
definitely
Okay,
stay in Scottsdale. Jacob Franklin, hop in here real quick.
You can text me the truth when we get off air.
Jacob Franklin, where should the great Aaron Torres stay for the Final Four? You are a Mesa native, Jay. And don't say Mesa or Gilbert.
No. I live in Gilbert right now. Gilbert's gotten, I mean, like in terms of like, there's some nice restaurants out in Gilbert, but like if you're looking for like nightlife, Scottsdale's probably the place.
Yeah. I mean, I've stayed in Scottsdale, Tempe, but I mean, one of my best friends went to ASU grad school. No big deal, whatever. Sorry, guys. So, good kid. Hey, we had fun. That's all I'll say. Yeah,
I'm an ASU guy, so you're speaking my language.
Yeah. Well, he was more of a UConn guy that just, didn't want to live in the cold for his grad program. But anyway, Torres has spent a lot of nights and early mornings in Tempe and Scottsdale. I just trying to figure out how much of an inconvenience it's going to be to get to all of the media stuff. But then the counter to that is all the fun, do I want to be near the stadium and then be far away from all the fun stuff? And the answer to that is obviously no.
I mean, you could stay downtown Phoenix. They've got some nice hotels downtown. You could still be close to some. I mean, and downtown has grown quite a bit over the last 10 years.
So we're at downtown or Scottsdale for Aaron Torres.
That would probably be where we're
residents.
If you got any hotel sponsors that want to help your boy Torres out, feel free to slide into those DMs if you can. So.
We will do that. All right, Jacob, we'll bring you back when you're needed. Thanks. See you later. All right. But all right, now some questions here for Aaron Torres.
But you didn't finish the sentence. You said, I think about it every day. How crazy would Phoenix be if Arizona makes the Final Four?
Oh, yeah. I mean, seriously, can you imagine? But you make a great point, though, about that Arizona now. The bullseye is on you. How are you going to respond to that? Because, again, this team was woefully underrated before the season started. But we know now, in my opinion, this is the best team in the country. I thought that, like you said, very early on. Because here's where I stand with Arizona. What weaknesses does this team have? And I keep going back to that show after show. You've got great size. You've got athleticism. You've got wing size athleticism. You've got ball handlers now. Maybe you pack in the paint because outside of maybe Boswell and Larson, don't have pure shooters. But I don't really know what Arizona's weakness is. And in this day and age of college basketball, that's a fairly unique thing to look at.
Well, and it speaks to, so first of all, and this kind of speaks to the Purdue thing, and I'm not trying to make this all about Purdue, is that, that's the argument is, well, I mean, they're so good in the paint that and I don't think that's going to be an issue for Arizona. And when you're so big and you can get so many easy baskets and so many second chance points at the rim, I don't think 3-point shooting is as important.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think there's a super fundamental weakness. Again, the guards, but listen, we've talked about this. If Caleb Love was a 37% 3-point shooter as a sophomore or junior at North Carolina,
right,
he'd be playing in the NBA right now. Keyshawn Johnson, the same thing. So no team is perfect. Every team has some sort of weakness. I would take Arizona's weaknesses against pretty much anybody's.
All right, now Wildcat Fields, great name. Do we just let Edey score and protect the perimeter, or do we try to clog the lane and make it impossible to get into Edey? What say you, Aaron Torres?
I'll be honest, and again, this speaks to the fact that I actually think Zach Edey is a really good player, and that's why I feel bad because he became a part of a conversation that made it seem like I don't like him or whatever.
Right.
But there's been games where Zach Edey gets his 25 and 15 and they lose. And I actually agree with Mike Luke's sentiment. I don't know if you have a coaching background in there somewhere that I'm not aware of, Ballo in theory can sort of handle him one-on-one and trade those twos for fast break points, for opportunities. Right. I don't think they will. And by the way, they won't control the boards the way that they have against other teams because you have more big bodies to throw at them. I don't think the foul discrepancy is going to be as big as it was. So to answer the listener's question, I agree. Go ahead. Yeah.
What also I think is going to hurt Purdue in this, and this is called a tease. Actually, it was a really crappy tease. But first, Shady Rays. Aaron Torres, you're a cool person. We need to get you a pair of Shady Rays, my friend.
Too much shade thrown my way this week. I needed a pair of Shady Rays.
We do need a pair of Shady Rays. Too bad your name's not Ray. Check it out, though. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. And Desert Financial Credit Union. Aaron Torres is a man of the people, by the people. That's why he is so beloved here in Tucson. Check it out, Desert Financial Credit Union. All kinds of good stuff. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 today. With Arizona, the thing that I also think that really makes them unique, Aaron, is a team like Purdue. When you go to the bench, you're looking to tread water. And again, that's not a diss towards Purdue.
It's a fact. I mean,
it's just a fact.
It's not an insult.
There's no let up with Arizona. When Arizona goes to the bench, you bring in KJ Lewis, who Shear is still, I will spike this football in Shear's face the rest of my life for having KJ Lewis as a fringe 100 player.
Does he have anything to do with the rankings though?
Yeah, I'd like to attribute it to him when it doesn't work out in his way.
He doesn't have enough sway is what you're saying.
He doesn't. Yeah, I'd have a loser. Now Mount Crevis, same way. Now again, he's different. And then Jaden Bradley coming off the bench, quick, dynamic, made a huge shot against Michigan State. There's no let up. There's no way where you can say, all right, man, at that under 12 timeout, we'll be able to coast here for a minute because the starters will be out. There's none of that with Arizona.
Well, and I'm sorry that I keep making this about Purdue, but
no, it is about Purdue. We're playing Purdue.
But I think this is why the foul conversation is so important. Right. Because we're talking about Arizona. What's their weakness? Oh, you'd like the 3-point shooting to be a little bit better. Purdue's weakness is 3 of their starters couldn't play for any of the other best teams in the country.
Right.
And so again, to go back to the foul shooting, why I deem it to be important. They beat Alabama by 6 in a game that they were plus 14 from the free throw line.
Right.
They beat Tennessee by 4 in a game that they were plus 18 from the free throw line. I mean, if it's called evenly, and but for the last time, I'm not saying that every game is supposed to have the same number of foul calls and the same number of foul shots on both teams. But plus 18 feels pretty one-sided to me. Plus 14 feels one way. So I guess what I would say is this. If Arizona is within 5 to 7 foul shots of the game, I think they win because they're better. Literally, one of our commenters said it. Better at 4 spots on the floor, probably in the top 8, better at 7 spots on the floor.
Right.
And so that's why the free throws are important. It's why it matters.
And physically, they're so much more dynamic. We need to talk about Keyshawn Johnson, your guy. Again, Aaron Torres, there's a reason he's doing what he did. Now, a lot of people said Keyshawn Johnson, when he came in, averaged 7 and 5 at San Diego State. Torres messaged me when it was announced, and he told me, he said, Mike, you are going to love this kid. Don't look at his numbers. He is perfect for what you want. Man, Aaron, from your mouth to God's ears or God's ears to your mouth, whatever that phrase is.
Some say we're one and the same, but
yeah, I'm going to say, but yes, he's been exactly. He is, if he's not the leader of the team, he's the heart and soul of the team. He's a physical type player that Arizona hasn't had in the Tommy Lloyd era. And he's just a winner. He does everything. Why am I talking? Talk.
No. That's why I was so interested to see him in an expanded role because he did do exactly that for 4 years. And it's funny because, listen, I'm not an NBA draft expert, evaluator, whatever. But I remember, seeing a couple NBA draft guys at the Final Four, and I meant to ask him, and I never did. I was like, "Do you guys have Keyshawn as an NBA, like on your board?" And it didn't feel like anybody did. And I know I've told this story on air before, but at the Final Four, which you'll be covering this year because Arizona will be there, you'll be, you'll be the host.
I'll be even rubbing shoulders with Torres.
I know. Yeah, you got to show me around Scottsdale. Right. But anyway, no, I've told the story, but there was probably about 6-7 guys at San Diego State. All their beat writers were there. They have a couple really good beat writers that cover them. And they're kind of asking, Lamont Butler, hey, you have another year of eligibility. What's the plan? Oh, well, I'm going to weigh my options. But if I'm in college, it's, I love San Diego State. And there was like 3 or 4 guys like that. And then Keyshawn was just like, yeah, we're going to have to just evaluate at the end of the year. And I didn't take that as like a super negative, but it struck me that he was looking for a bigger role. And so I remember going back to his recruitment was there's some great people that cover Kentucky because it came down to really Arizona and Kentucky. Right. And this is not a knock on them because I talked about loser media members before. The people in Kentucky have been great to me, but the information that they were getting from their sources at Kentucky was, well, Keyshawn, he'd be a really good 6th, 7th piece. And, he's comfortable playing off the bench because that's what he did at San Diego State. It's like, right. No, the whole reason he left a team that just won the national championship was because he wanted a bigger role. And by the way, that's not a criticism of the writers, because that's probably what the coaching staff was kind of letting them know is, hey, this is the role that we see for him. And if that is how Kentucky was recruiting him, they were completely misevaluating him. And that's not a knock on John Calipari. It was just to say that he was clearly looking for a bigger role. And as this year has proven, he is clearly capable of a much bigger role. I do believe I said on one of your summer shows that he would be drafted in the 2024 NBA draft. I feel good about that. But yeah, even during the recruitment, it was like, well, I mean, he came off the bench at San Diego State, so he'd be comfortable doing it here. It's like, no. He's coming somewhere to kick butt and take names, and that's exactly what he's done so far this year.
Arizona.
Is he the Pac-12 Player of the Year right now?
You know, it's funny.
Probably
I was about to mention you that. I was about to ask you that. Honestly, listen, there's going to be guys with better stats, obviously, but I mean, listen, like a guy, and some of it's going to depend. Keon Brooks is going to average 20 and 8 this year. If Washington doesn't stink, KJ Simpson is pretty good as well. Boogie Ellis will put up numbers, but Keyshawn Johnson is going to be right in that discussion. To further your point about Kentucky, the teams that John Calipari I always thought had the best success with were when you had really good player, or you had the precocious freshman, but you also had a DeAndre Liggins or a Darius Miller or good somebody like that was a fourth-year player that you were able to sprinkle in there for some maturity. Sure. I think where he's kind of lost his way is he hasn't had those type of dudes. Keyshawn Johnson would have been exactly that for them.
No, 100%. And I think, we don't need to turn this into a Kentucky podcast, but I think it's skewed. He went so heavy in the freshman stuff. And then really, I will say in defense of Kentucky, and I think they're pretty good. I think they're going to beat Carolina this weekend.
I do too.
I would argue that program was hurt more by COVID than any other program in college basketball, because the 2020 season, you did have that freshman model. Well, the kids can't ever be together. They're all in their own rooms. Right. That year was miserable for I remember talking to, frankly, guys on Gonzaga's staff that some of them are now at Arizona, where it's like, yeah, we're winning every game, but it's not fun for us. Like, we're not having a good time. So you had that situation. But then the following year, you couldn't have on-site recruiting. And so they were hurt in the next recruiting class as well. Then they kind of get screwed last year because Shaedon Sharpe was supposed to go there and he leaves, and then Shibwe comes back. So this is the first year that I think he's really gotten back to it. But I'm not defending him because, he's got to win. He's paid a lot of money to win games. But I do think COVID probably hurt that team more than anybody else. And I think we're starting to see that he's starting to get it back with those elite recruiting classes.
All right. I got a marketing idea for you. But first, put up that Jed Fish shirt.
Oh, the Jet Fish. Yeah,
look at this. You can get this from Aaron Torres. Look at this. These things are going like hotcakes.
They are, dude. Thank you. By the way, the last time I came on your show, so it says "Gone Fishing," and that's an honor. Can you see it? Is it coming through?
Kind of. But again, when you tweet it out after the show as well, and we will definitely get this up.
Listen.
It's a cool shirt.
It's a great shirt. We got to get you one in your size. You let me know your size and mailing address. And they're great. And Arizona fans have been awesome. We actually sold out after I did the last PHNX hit. And listen, Jed Fish has created a ton of excitement with this program. I'm happy to see Arizona fans happy. And I've had a lot of people say, we're buying them. We're bringing them to our game. We're bringing them to the Alamo Bowl. So I will say, you got about 2 or 3 days. If you want them for Christmas, great stocking stuffer. Certainly if you want them for your trip to San Antonio, you got to do that pretty quick. But yeah, Arizona fans, grab that Gone Fishing shirt, and we will tweet it out after.
I've got another shirt idea for you as well. Sure. All right. Now, do you know who Philly B is?
No. Who's Philly B?
Philip
Boravichin, right?
Philip Boravichin on the University of Arizona. He is kind of a cult hero here in Tucson.
Sure.
Philly B. That's why, Michael Candrea is not the only one that's saying this. Philly B, Pac-12 Player of the Year. You need to look into Philly B, because I think if you marketed some Philly B shirts, what do we got here? It would work. Well, all right. Who are we talking with?
This is my little princess Charlie. She was chewing at my sock, so I had to let her up here.
What kind of dog is Charlie?
She is a cockapoo. She has an Instagram if anybody wants to follow, but she was licking at my feet, so I just had to bring her up because I think the Zach Edey takes just woke her up, and she just said, "You know what? I'm coming in. I'm defending my dad. I got his back. All these Purdue fans, you want to come at me. You want to come at him. You're coming at me too." So
I had a Cocker Spaniel. It was one of the best dogs I've ever had, but there were ear infections nonstop. That was the only annoying part. Knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen. All right.
Okay.
Let's get a prediction in the game. And then we're going to bring Jacob Franklin back in here because Jacob Franklin was talking some mess earlier in the week. But give me a prediction, Aaron Torres.
I said it. I think so. First of all, I do think Arizona is going to win. But
You're back in the A.
I'm back in the A. I think especially if the foul discrepancy is what I think it will be, I think Arizona wins. I'll say 84-81. I do think Purdue will get the whistle because it's in Indianapolis, but I'll say 84-81. And again, I think it comes down to if Purdue's plus 14 at the free throw line, they'll probably win. If it is called a little bit more balanced, which I think it will be for all the reasons we discussed, I think Arizona wins.
All right, now you might, if you're getting a headache watching all of this, watching Zach Edey get every single call.
I thought you were saying watching me pet my dog. I was like, did I piss everybody off?
No. Getting a headache from Zach Edey. You might need some OGs, Aaron Torres. OGs. All right, here's the cool thing. To learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head over to ogsbrands.com.
I need some of those this week just to take the edge off. But anyway.
You do need some OGs. Exactly. All right, now. Here's the deal. From OG's classics like the fruits and the creams and the mouth-watering Pegs, raspberries, orange RSO, there's something for everyone in the OG's lineup. Check it out. I'm going Arizona 82-74. All right. Yeah, I think Arizona's going to win by about 8. Now we're bringing Jacob Franklin back in because
does BetMGM have a line out yet? No, right? It's too early.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I believe that'll be out tonight. Jacob Franklin sent me a very salacious well, that sounds terrible. A very
salacious.
No, that's the wrong verbiage. A very demeaning text. How about that? That's much better. He said during the ASU San Francisco game, he said this seriously, that he said, honestly, I think we can get you guys. He was talking about ASU and Arizona.
Okay.
Listen. Danny Hurley coaches at UConn. You have a familiarity with the UConn Danny Hurley. Jacob Franklin has familiarity with the Bobby Hurley side. I'm going to let you guys duke it out. Can ASU beat Arizona?
I think saying that they can't is a lie because there's not a 0% chance that they could beat them.
Yeah, I mean, in basketball, we're still talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, it's. Listen, do you want me to do the whole thing? I'll be honest. I'd be lying if I said I've really done the deep dive on Arizona State yet because they're the same team every year. They're pretty good in the out of conference.
You come in unprepared without Arizona State basketball inside information. Come on, Aaron.
This is PHNX Wildcats, not PHNX Sun Devils. When I get invited on that show by Luke Mike, who's your doppelganger, your evil twin that hosts the Sun Devils show, then I'll do my homework.
Right. All right. But
imagine if there was a guy named Luke Mike who was just your evil twin who was just.
I can't tell you how many times growing up people called me Luke Mike. It happened all the time.
Yeah. Well, I definitely. What was it? I was calling you Matt Luke for a while because I was a football coach for a minute.
That's what Jed Fish thought my name was Matt for the longest time as well. He came on the show and called me Matt one time. I was like, Coach. I said Jeff. That's what I said. I said Jeff. But here's what I want to talk about Hurley's for a second. When I watch Danny Hurley, sure, he gets very animated. I know officials hate him. I get it. But there always looks to be like he has still a rhyme and a reason for what he's doing. It looks like, when he constructs the roster, he knows what, it just always feels like he still knows what he's doing. I have no clue what Bobby Hurley is doing whatsoever. And for one of the smartest college point guards ever, that baffles me. You two, what do you think? You're smarter than me, both of you.
Do you want to go first, Jacob, or you want me to
go? I mean, yeah, I for some reason I watch almost every single Arizona State basketball game.
I do too.
There's probably not really a good reason to do that, but I think it's mostly because what we've talked about before, like you just never know what you're going to get out of this team. Like they run a ton of ISO. They run the Princeton. They run a ton of ISO ball. Every guy thinks that he's like the bucket getter. It's really fun to watch. Like it's just like, even if they're not good shooters, like they just try and take like step back, turn around, fade toward the baseline, and like they'll hit the side of the backboard. But then the next game they'll like nothing but net. They'll hit the shot, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, do you just practice this on a daily basis? I think that's part of the fun that I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to give them a 0% chance to beat Arizona because you just never really know what you're going to get. They could go out there and hit every three that they take, and score like 110 points. They won't, but they could.
I mean, I think that's pretty much my outside analysis of Arizona State. I don't know like what the plan is. Like, you know, like
there is no plan.
Like, no, like what is the brand, right? Like, you know, UConn, it's toughness. Duke, it's one and done. Kentucky, it's one and done. Arizona, it's you know, kind of speed and athleticism and that Gonzaga offense. Gonzaga, it's offense. Creighton, it's offense. Marquette, it's kind of that speed and quickness.
UConn is size.
Yeah, it's like I don't like Arizona State. It's just get 11 new players every year. Tell me that this year is going to be different. Start out hot. Say I told you it was going to be different. Then lose like 8 of 9 or 10 of 12, and then be on the bubble. And most years you get in. And like, you know, so I don't really know like what the Arizona State, like I don't know what he's doing. And to Mike's point, it's so counterintuitive to what Dan is doing at UConn. And I think there's a corollary there of Bobby was the good player. He was out of basketball for a while after his NBA career, whereas Dan has basically been a coach since the second that he basically his career ended. But I just bring it up because you look at Dan, like Dan, I can like he evaluates well, he coaches well. Like I've truly said this, and I think Tommy Lloyd is on the short list of guys that I think you could include. I really sincerely mean this. I think you can argue right now, today, this second, that Dan Hurley is the best coach in college basketball. That sounds crazy. He just won he won a championship, but I think he had one. Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. Evaluation, development. You know, Andre Jackson, second-round NBA pick, development. Jordan Hawkins was a fringe top 50 player in his class, was a lottery pick. Donovan Clingan was a fringe top 30, 35, 40 player in his class, is going to be a lottery pick this year. Stephon Castle was a fringe top 30 pick, commits as a fringe top 30 guy, commits as a junior, ends up as one of the top 10 players in the class, is going to be a lottery pick. Tyrese Martin, by the way, was recruited by Dan Hurley to Rhode Island, ends up at UConn and ends up being a second-round NBA draft pick. James Bouknight, lottery pick. So the point I'm trying to make is he evaluates well, he develops well. It's clear that the players like playing for him. They play hard. And it's a complete program. And I think in 2024, 2023, it's hard to have a program as much as a year-to-year thing. And I think UConn, I think Tommy Lloyd has proven at Arizona, like, you know, not many guys can kind of sustain it at a really high level. And I know it's only, you know, the second year of UConn really looking like this, but I'm just saying is like, you know, you look at, again, evaluation, development, you know, players getting better in the program, all that stuff. I mean, he just checks a lot of these guys just weren't, you get the point. I won't keep going.
Jacob Franklin, I see that you are brimming with objection.
No, I'm not.
And Bobby Hurley's the exact opposite. We'll just bring in 11
Bobby,
transfers, all of them.
I have a Bobby Hurley story. Can I tell you this story?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Is it salacious like the Jacob thing?
This is the salacious Jacob Franklin text. By the way, Jesse Johnson, just so everybody else. Oh, we need to get to UConn as a blue blood in question. Jesse Johnson, I ask Jacob Franklin every single day if he's going to come on the show. This is true, Jacob Franklin. Hey, what happened to Torres?
We just lost Torres.
Wow. Hey, Torres, get back in here, dude.
No, he's not even here.
I'm going to text him. Get back in here. Hold on.
There he is.
All right, good. It scared me for a second. Yeah, I was like,
I clicked right out.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, when we talk about Jacob Franklin, you hopped right out. I asked Jacob Franklin.
Now he just took my spotlight. No, I'm kidding.
I asked Jacob Franklin every single show to come on, and he always comes up with a reason. Oh, I didn't bring my computer, or I don't have my film. Jacob Franklin is now Jesse Johnson. I know, love your encouragement of Jacob Franklin. Yes, more Jacob Franklin, not less Jacob Franklin. We rely on Jacob Franklin. Give you an idea. One time we had 88 lives. Jacob Franklin came on the show, and it boosted up to 112 within like a minute. It wasn't a coincidence. So, you know, that's yeah. All right, that's that. Is UConn
back to your show, Mike?
Fair enough. All right, fair enough. Or you're dismissed. Is UConn a blue blood? I think it is.
I don't care. Like, and I've said this a million times. So, and this was funny because this was like the Purdue thing on a smaller scale before Purdue. But like 3 years ago, I put out a tweet, something like, wow, the blue bloods all look pretty good this year. You know, UCLA and North Carolina and da-da-da-da. And some Villanova writer was like, way not to include Villanova. I'm like, well, Villanova's not a blue blood. So my understanding of what a blue blood is I wear a Kansas shirt, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. obviously a Kansas homer,
Right.
is that a blue blood isn't something you become. It's something you either are or you're not. And it kind of spans with the like history of college basketball. So Kansas is a blue blood, North Carolina is a blue blood, UCLA, Kentucky, even Duke's kind of on the fringes, but I've always said there's 6 blue bloods.
Well, Duke developed into a blue blood if you use that.
Well, I mean, they made the Final Four like 2 years before Coach K got there. So, but even Duke, they're on the fringes, right? They're on the fringes. So I just bring it up because I said it for Villanova and I'll say it for UConn. I don't think it's some club that you can get into if you're not. It's like, I always use the example. It's like being the king of England. Elton John may be the most famous person in England. He may be richer than the king, although I don't think that's possible.
Right.
He can't be the king. He doesn't get to say, well, I'm the most famous person in England, so I'm the king now. David Beckham doesn't get to say that. And that's how I view a blue blood. And so I don't think, no offense, Arizona's not a blue blood. UConn's not a blue blood. Louisville's not a blue blood. Michigan State's not a blue blood. And that's okay. Would an Indiana fan trade the last 30 years for Arizona basketball, for Villanova basketball? Would a UCLA fan? By the way, I'll tell you this, Mike. I saw, my buddy Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, because, Kentucky's playing Carolina this weekend. And, he put out his like list of top programs in the sport, whatever. And I think he got to 9 and he didn't include Arizona. And I'd sit there and say, Arizona's been good basically every year for like
85,
40 years. Yeah, for about 40 years, 3 different head coaches at this point.
Right.
Like, would an Indiana fan, I mean, I guess I don't think they would. Would they trade I don't think they wouldn't. Would they trade the last 40 years for Arizona? I think they would. So it's such an artificial, like, BS label that I just don't care about. And like, I don't know. I find the conversation so uninteresting. It's like, if you want to rank programs the last 30 years, that's an interesting conversation. You could have different data to support different things. UConn's missed a bunch of tournaments, but they've won 5 national championships. So like, I just don't find the conversation interesting. Like, to me, it's like saying, is Elton John the king of England? No, he's not the king of England. Next question. Like, no, UConn's not a blue blood. That's okay. Life will go on. I'll just take all my national championship trophies. Like, I need those Shady Ray sunglasses.
With my rings.
I need those Shady Ray sunglasses because every time I walk into the practice facility, the shine of all those national championship trophies making me go blind. Like, I don't care. And it's a great question by your listener. And I've talked about it on my show because people ask me. I just don't understand why people find it to be such an interesting question. I don't think it's an interesting question at all.
All right, here's something that is interesting. Sombreros. Let Sombreros cater all your holiday fiestas, big or small. Order online or find one near you by visiting Sombreros.com. Seasons eating with Sombreros. This sounds very, very good. Sombreros is family owned and operated and was voted most loved Mexican restaurant. If you like Jacob Franklin, you're going to like Sombreros. It's very, very good. Jedi Force put one of these super snaps in. It doesn't say anything, but it says 99 cents. Jedi to Force, we appreciate it. All right, now, also, no better time to become a PHNX diehard. You got Discords, you got merchandise, you got all kinds of good stuff. Become a PHNX diehard. And this, Steve Hernandez. And we got a watch party coming up, Arizona, Purdue. Let's say you don't have Peacock. Check out my mom was asking me the other day what station that is. That is a problem. So again, check out you can go to the watch party, join us at Tap and Bottle downtown. Yeah, well, duh, I'll be there. Yeah, I gotta host it. But before we sign off, Aaron Torres.
By the way, really quick, you mentioned your mom. Do you know who Arnie Spanier is? The radio?
Oh yes, yes, very well. Yes.
I hosted radio with Arnie for like 4 years. He just texted me at 10:13 Pacific, so 20 minutes ago. He said, pissed off Purdue v. Arizona is on Peacock. I don't think I have that. Not even sure. Does it cost money? So
it's not the only, again, I think there's a lot of people over the age of 50 that are wondering what station Peacock is.
And I swear, and I'm not trying to just bring it full circle with the Purdue stuff. I think it's going to hurt Big Ten basketball when Yeah, I mean, maybe now they won't get 14 teams into the tournament that all lose in the first round. Although they're adding Oregon and Washington, so that'll be.
I will say this: there's not many things that I'm on the cutting edge of. I've been on frontline soldier against this movement for a long time, Aaron. That's why we get along. But Bigger Fish, where can they find you and your T-shirt?
Yeah,
get it Bigger Fish.
Oh yeah, bigger fish. Yeah, I got that. That's FAFISCH. By the way,
it means nothing.
C in there. Yes. Gone fishing. Can you see it? Is it coming through? No,
kind of. We'll tweet it out. It's not a great image, but yeah, we'll get it. It's very cool. Trust me.
They're a great shirt. You know what I can do? I can just drop a link in the comments section for everybody that's looking. But yeah, they're great for the holidays, great for Christmas. They're great stocking stuffer. There is a limited supply, so once they go for good. And I know you guys are getting ready for. I have to join the chat. I won't join the chat, but I know you guys are going to, you have you ever been to San Antonio before, by the way?
I have been to San Antonio. I remember the Alamo.
Okay. It's a great place. That's why I ask. I think Arizona fans that are going are going to have a blast. I went for the Final Four in 18. By the way, that was 04. That was one of UConn's national championships, won in San Antonio.
One of our championships.
Yeah, one of them. But fun fact, I guess 4 out of the 5. You want to hear a really fun fact?
What do you got?
All 5 UConn national champions have come out of the West region. I believe they were.
You're right. No, you're right. I've seen that before. You were right.
But the 18 Final Four, which is actually a very boring Final Four, it was Loyola Chicago, Michigan.
Was that with the old lady?
Yeah,
they would always like the nun or whatever that was like front row.
Sister Jean. Speaking of being on the front lines, I was the first one that was like, okay, enough is enough already. And people were like, wow, you're the worst. And I'm like, I kind of just want to watch the game without this old lady there. And then like they brought her back like 2 years later. It was like, the remix, and it was like, no, you can't.
The remix. Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah, and then, I could get a little crazy here, but then it was the 2021 NCAA tournament where players were getting tested every day. Players were getting pulled from the tournament for testing positive, and then they rolled her, out to center court. I'm like, are we taking this virus seriously? I don't think we're taking it that seriously. So this guy on Georgia Tech just tested positive. He can't play, but she's 107 and she can be in the arena. Like, what are we even doing here? Anyway, I'm getting off cuff here. San Antonio is amazing. You guys are going to have so much fun for those of you who have never been there before. Beautiful city. Everything is right in that downtown. So I can't wait for you guys to go. I can't wait to watch. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I think Oklahoma is actually going to be locked in because they have that new quarterback that they're kind of trotting out there. So they want to put on a good front for him. So yeah, I'm actually really excited about that. What was that? 29th?
28th. Yep. All right. He is the great Aaron Torres. Again, national host for Fox Sports, t-shirt aficionado, backer of the aid, defender of the truth is what it is. Yes. And goes at nonsense like Big Ten basketball being the best conference in the country when it is the worst. But that Zach Edey can somehow draw 14 fouls on one end and commit 1 to 2 on the other end. We have that clip coming out, my friends. But for the great Aaron Torres, Jacob Franklin right here. Jacob, pull the finger out of your nose. How you doing? All right, now on that front, we will talk with you tomorrow. Matt Muehlbach coming on. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.